It's more clear than ever right now that the Washington Nationals simply do not understand what their assignment is in 2025. And yes, they failed.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. And we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And later on in the show today, the Nationals have a 2:05 first pitch in Kansas City. We'll have that preview for you later on in the show today. And in the second segment, if I were the Nationals GM, which they wish I was, I'd be a great GM. I'm just kidding. I'd be terrible. Maybe not. I'd make this move today. We'll have that discussion for you in the second segment. But the Nationals, as we said, they are failing at the one assignment that they assigned themselves for, and they are failing it miserably. I'll tell you that, but today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So the Washington Nationals, they are failing, and yes, they are failing at giving the young guys opportunities. Yesterday's show ranted for about nearly 10, 11 minutes on how Robert Hassell III has not been playing, and lo and behold, you put Robert Hassell III in the game yesterday, he robs a home run, and he does his part. How hard was that? It was not too hard to put Robert Hassell III in your Nationals lineup for yesterday's game. But then there was another thing that they did not do, and that is with Brady House. The Nationals, for the second straight day, sat Brady House. What are we doing? At what point in time will the Nationals finally realize that this season is over? You are not winning baseball games. You are not winning baseball games with Paul DeJong over at third base. You are not winning baseball games in 2026 with Paul DeJong at first base. You are winning baseball games. If you win baseball games, it's because of Brady House and James Wood and CJ Abrams. When will the young guys be the priority? At what point in time do the Nationals finally sit back and say, you know what? We are going to play the young guys. Just 6 days ago, I was raving about Mike DeBartolo, raving about how he kind of said the quiet part out loud. And, you know, not many GMs really say this, but I thought it was a real kind of breath of fresh air here in the room of DC. This is what he had to say to Barry Sluga quite literally a week ago. What we use the next 7 weeks for, we want to evaluate our young players, see which players can be a part of those future successful Nationals teams. That's where our focus is. What kind of decision-making is this right now? Is this on the front office? Is this on the Nationals coaching staff? I don't really think that's the topic of conversation here, because we could play the blame game all day long here. The blame game starts in the ownership and trickles down into the Nationals management. There's blame to go everywhere. If I had to bet right now, this is probably a Miguel Cairo job. This is probably Miguel Cairo trying to put the better players out there, quote unquote, and trying to win games to save face a little bit. And you know what? Good for Miguel Cairo. He has got a job to win. He's got a job to save. I understand why he would want to do this. But at what point do the Nationals front office kind of step in and say, hey, man, I get it that Paul DeJong might be the better hitter as of right now with Brady House. But Brady House is not going to be a lot much better by sitting on the bench taking mental reps. Robert Hassell III is not going to be better sitting on the bench taking mental reps. At what point do the Nationals finally play the young guys consistently? At what point do you say, you know what? We're going to have these kids try to swim the best way that they can in the major leagues. Right now, they have not been hitting the right buttons. And if you're in this rebuild, which we are, and you acknowledge that, which they have, then what part of this rebuild has Paul DeJong part of the future? And honestly, with Jacob Young even, I like Jacob Young, but he's not going to be an integral part of this future. Right now, he's just a really great defender in center field. But then he has a sub 600 OPS offensively. He doesn't get on base. He doesn't hit for average. He doesn't hit for power. At what point in time do you finally say enough is enough and this is going to be the lineup that you're going to put out each and every single day? Moneyball is one of my favorite movies of all time. And we all know with Moneyball, if you've seen it, it's a great movie, obviously. Don't need to go into the details of it. But in Moneyball, I thought there was a great scene there where Brad Pitt finally comes down, Billy Bean comes down to the manager's office, and he's like, this is going to be your lineup, and this is how you're going to do it. That is kind of the analytics role here that DeBartolo is playing within the Nationals front office. At what point does he go down to Miguel Cairo's office and says, listen, man, I understand that you're coaching for a job, but right now you're an interim manager, and you're likely not going to be a manager after this season. You're probably going to be going back to being a bench coach, which is fine. That's what he's good at. But you got to put this lineup out here to help this team and help this organization win. We are not trying to win games in 2025. We are trying to establish a foundation for winning years to come, hopefully in 2027 and beyond. That is what the Nationals' goal is right now. And you are failing at it if you are benching Brady House and benching Robert Hassell III. In yesterday's game, the Nationals' offense didn't do all too much. They put together 5 runs. They actually out-hit the Royals, 10 hits to only 6, and they still got outscored by 3 runs there later on in the game. But what is going on? Why can't we get this message across? Who is in the wrong? Who was the one saying, you know what? Brady House is going to sit tonight. Because also, by the way, I saw some people kind of speculate this. Well, it's the right-handed matchup. Brady House has crushed right-handed pitchers all season long. Not just in the majors. He hasn't crushed right-handed pitchers in the majors. He's struggled so far. But in AAA this season, he batted .296 with a .475 slug against right-handed pitchers. And also in that, had 14 home runs. Comparing it to the left-handed pitchers that he faced, he only hit 1 home run against left-handed pitching down in AAA. This is not an analytics game that they are trying to play here and trying to play the matchup games. This is just simply malpractice by this organization, not playing Brady House and or Robert Hassell III every day. Give these young guys the opportunities that they deserve and that they need. We know what Jacob Young is. We know what Paul DeJong is. Paul DeJong is going to sign a minor league deal, get an invite to spring training on an elsewhere team sometime this offseason, and that will be his career, and that's fine. But Brady House has an opportunity to be an everyday major leaguer moving forward, to be a foundational piece for this team, not just in 2026, but in all the way through 2032. He has that ability. And right now, with what the Nationals are doing, it's simply malpractice by not playing your young guys each and every single day. Play Brady House. Play Robert Hassell III. Because, by the way, even just talking with Bobby Barrels here, the Nationals are going to have a tough decision to make. You have Dylan Cruz coming off the IL probably in the next few days, probably within the next week, if I had to bet. One of the outfielders is going to get sent down. Why not give Bobby Barrels every opportunity to succeed? It's not going to be Brady House being the one sent down. He can't play in the outfield. Dylan Cruz is going to come up because, again, he is a foundational piece, and they recognize that. But you have a decision to make, and the one guy who is probably in the middle of that decision is riding the bench. That's just unacceptable. It's unacceptable for the Nationals. It's unacceptable for development. And mental reps are not going to get people anywhere nowadays. They won't. So hopefully the Nationals in today's lineup and whatever we see, they fix that thing because it's inexcusable. It's unacceptable. And again, the wins and losses do not matter. This is the third worst team in baseball today. And honestly, they've been one of the worst teams in baseball since the middle of June. This is just bad. It's bad management, and it's just bad overall. That's what I have to say about that. It's malpractice, to say the least. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. If you haven't done so already, check us out. Locked On Nationals over on YouTube for the video version, and as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Just look up Locked On Nationals. But next, if I were the GM, I would make this move today. I'll tell you that after this. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. And think about the last time that you had a service emergency like a burst pipe. And if the first plumber did not answer, did you wait? Nope, you called the next one. And that's why having a reliable business line is so important. And that's why you need our friends at OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system that helps you streamline and scale customer communication, all from an app on your phone or computer. And maybe you have juggled 2 phones at once to try to keep your business and personal calls separate. OpenPhone has actually solved that issue because they have solved it instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more asking who's going to handle this customer or the next one after that. OpenPhone has an AI agent that handles after-hour calls even that can help you with common questions and, of course, captured leads so you can never miss a customer again. OpenPhone is offering Locked On Nationals listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnMLB. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnMLB. And if you have existing customers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. And we are back because I'm going to play the Nationals GM as we're the Locked On Nationals podcast. So it's time to play some Nats GM. And if I were Ryan DeBartolo today, I would DFA Nathaniel Lowe and call up Yohandy Morales. Let me explain. Pretty simple. Is Nathaniel Lowe a part of this future for the Nationals? No. We're all in agreement on that? Okay, good. I think Nathaniel Lowe will be DFA'd this offseason. He'll be non-tendered. That's the correct wording for this. The reason why that is because, quite frankly, whatever money that he's going to want this offseason will not be worth for really much at this point in time. Lowe is only hit, and again, let's just, before we get into the numbers of this, Nathaniel Lowe was brought in here to, #1, improve this team defensively, and #2, hit power. While Nathaniel Lowe earlier on this season was actually really good in the power category, and he was on pace for some of his career highs, and as far as like power hitting goes and slugging and home runs, as the season has gone on, it's been clear. The numbers that we have seen from Lowe earlier on this season were slightly inflated because as we sit here today, having a 366 slug compared to a 401 slug from last year where he had a 762 OPS, and his on-base percentage has dipped down nearly 80 points from last season. This has not been a winning scenario for the Nationals. And going into the first segment of why I would call up Yohandy Morales, well, it's simple. You have to give the young guys opportunities. And right now, Nathaniel Lowe is blocking a Yohandy Morales. I don't think the Nationals are planning on Yo-Yo being the opening day first baseman next year. I also don't think they're planning on Nathaniel Lowe being the opening day first baseman next season. But what I can say is that this may be the one opportunity for Yo-Yo to really get his at-bats in up in the major leagues. And by the way, now is probably the time to do that for him. Because if you look at his overall stats right now, he has actually been really good over his last 10, 30 games, he is starting to get a little hot down in the lower level of AAA. Over his last 10 games, he's batting .307 with a .427 slug. Right then and there, things are starting to click. And in that time frame as well, he's got 1 home run to share, but he's also had a couple of extra base hits in that department as well. I think that Yo-Yo Morales will be called up eventually, hopefully here soon. Especially when, the roster expands in September. I think you'll definitely see him up in the major leagues. Typically, some teams like to go with pitching there, but as of right now, I probably would guess on Yo-Yo being that call up for the Nationals. So maybe they waiting for that situation there. But again, what's the point of going out there with Nathaniel Lowe every single day? The defense isn't very good. He's not hitting for power. And as we were mentioning earlier, he's only hit for 2 home runs in his last 30 games. And forget the power for a second. He's been a flat-out bad hitter. In that time, batting .163 with a .269 slug and a .256 OBP. This necessarily isn't really about Yohandy Morales being overcooked in AAA even. This is also just a Nathaniel Lowe problem. And this is something that the Nationals can and should solve, hopefully shortly soon. Maybe they don't see any value in DFAing him at this point. And honestly, I can get that argument. I think as far as I know, Nathaniel Lowe seems like a great guy, good, solid clubhouse guy. Everyone likes him. He's, was a fan favorite earlier on this season. A lot of the fans loved him. But ever since then, you've seen the bad defense. You've seen the lack of power. And honestly, if I'm just being honest here, it feels as if he's a little checked out of this team. And you know what? That's fine. I kind of get it for a veteran guy who's nearly 30 years old and wants to be on a contending team. I understand why he'd be checked out. But also, if you're checked out, and if the Nationals are likely going to move off you this offseason, you couldn't really find any trade partners for him, might as well DFA him. It's not going to hurt you. You're going to swallow the next month and a half of salary here, and then, clean slate, you're done. Out the door. Let's see what we have with Yo-Yo Morales at this point. And honestly, because again, the Nationals are the 3rd worst team in baseball here. They've got nothing to play for the next month and a half, besides one thing. And that one thing is giving these young guys opportunities to succeed up in the major leagues. I'm tired of seeing these older veteran guys come out and play, quite frankly, just meaningless baseball. It was meaningful before the deadline for me to see Nathaniel Lowe go out there and hopefully get things right and trade him at the deadline. It was meaningful to me to have Paul DeJong get his at-bats earlier on this season, and hopefully you trade him at the deadline. Same goes for Josh Bell. But none of those things happened, and it takes 2 to tango. Maybe teams didn't want Josh Bell and or Nathaniel Lowe. Paul DeJong was hurt, didn't have the innings behind him. We all know how kind of that went with DeJong. Can't blame him in that scenario. But what is holding the Nationals back from just going all in on this youth movement and going all in on a Yohandy Morales playing first base for the next month and a half? What is holding them back from playing Robert Hassell III and Dylan Cruz and James Wood and having Dalen Lyle in there and those being your 4 outfielders and one of them DHs for the rest of the year to get their at-bats in, and then you move guys around in the outfield? What's preventing them from that at this point? That's the part where I don't get. Going out there every day with Nathaniel Lowe at this point just seems pointless. It seems just like an endless junk move by the Nationals, if I'm being quite honest here. Move off from it. Let's start a new chapter here. We have to see what we have with these future Nationals. And again, the reason why I want to see Yo-Yo Morales now is I don't expect the Nationals to go into next season saying, this guy's going to be our first baseman of the future. In fact, they'll probably sign someone to, again, another 1-year deal and run it back over at first base. Well, over the next month and a half, if Yo-Yo hits well up in the bigs and you see him play solid defensively and he gets better and he starts to hit for some power up in the majors, maybe you're talking about him being your opening day first baseman. maybe you figure out that he's going to be your in-house solution. And the reason why I think he's ready to be called up now is, again, look at his numbers. Over his last 10 games, batting really, really well. And again, over his last 30 games even, batting north of 300 with a north of a 500 slug, a 504 slug over his last 30 games in AAA Rochester. What are we waiting for? He had a slow start in AAA, but he is certainly killing the baseball right now. And not even just crushing it, he's hitting for average. He's playing well over at first base. Isn't the point to get these guys their opportunities when they are hot? You called up Robert Hassell III when he was hot. It sort of translated up into the bigs also. You did the same thing with Dalen Lyle. Why aren't we doing this with Yohandy Morales? It makes no sense to me. Thank you all for making I was going to say Yohandy Morales. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And next, let's talk about Game 3 as the Nationals look to avoid the sweep against the Kansas City Royals. Yay. Let's talk about that after this. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you have been dying to see. And live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in, and Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Are you tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And of course, when I'm on my way to a Nationals game, whether it be for a concert or a game, whatever it could be, I'm on the Metro, I'm checking Gametime, and I have their flash zone deals right before first pitch or that first song that comes on. And of course, well, what happens if your plans change? The Gametime guarantee has your back with cancellation protection and much more. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. So the Nationals have a 2:10 first pitch today against the Kansas City Royals. They've dropped the last two games here. And yes, has not been a pretty series, but still the Nationals are kicking, they're crying, they're trying to fight their way into winning games right now. And while it has been frustrating over the last few weeks, really the last few months here as the Nationals fans go for it, it's still fun to watch baseball. You only have a month and a half left of it. Take advantage of it with a 2:10 pitch today. So with that in mind, the Nationals have Jake Irvin on the bump, who we have covered his struggles as of recent with the Nationals. It's not been a pretty showing for him over his last 7 starts. Even forget the last 7 starts. Check out his last 15. This guy has a mid-5 ERA over his last 15 starts. He has a 5.35 ERA over his last 7 starts. In that time, 91 hits allowed in 82 innings pitched, 27 walks, only 57 strikeouts, a 1.44 whip, all over his last 15 starts. It's not been pretty for Jake Irvin. In fact, we'll probably have to have a pretty large discussion about him and kind of the sideways / backward step that he has taken so far this season. And if you look at the Royals and the way that they're set up, they're actually playing 500 baseball right now. They just got back up to 500 for the first time, I believe, since earlier on this season. And they're making a playoff push, and they've got their stud on the mound today with Seth Lugo. We all know this name, New York Met for 7-8 years with the New York Mets. And as a bullpen guy, he was a starter early on in his career and really came on with the Mets later on in his career. Signed with San Diego. They named him a starter. And ever since then, he has been one of the game's best starting pitchers in all of baseball. He finished second in the Cy Young race last year in the American League and helped carry the Royals into the postseason. And they were a wagon that I thought were set up for success for future years. But overall, they've actually kind of been a disappointment. But with today's game, I'm actually really excited for this one because, again, this is a good pitcher that the Nationals are going up against. And with these young guys that I fully expect will be in the lineup today, hopefully, Robert Hassell III and Brady House, go up against some of the game's best and get your at-bats in. Simple as that. You have to go up against really good pitchers. That's part of being a major league player. Give them these opportunities to go against guys like Seth Lugo. If Paul DeJong is in ahead of Brady House today, I'll rip my hair out live on stream. And if Robert Hassell III is riding the bench today, I will rip my hair out ×2 live on a stream. It should not happen. But before that, just want to do a quick note about Kauffman Stadium real quick. How awesome is that place? That is an awesome place to watch a game, I think. I was actually talking with someone today about it, and he was saying how Kauffman Stadium is a quote-unquote hellhole. That's what someone called it. Like, I don't believe that's the case whatsoever. I think Kauffman Stadium is very nice. They've got barbecue there, and yeah, they have a highway in the background, but who cares? The fountains out in the outfield, awesome. Their scoreboard with the crown on top, awesome. And last but not least, the Royals have some of the cleanest uniforms in all of baseball. I think that's an awesome place to watch a game. So if you're there in Kansas City, tweet at me at RyanClaire11. I would love to see your seats, love to see the views from your seats, and kind of hopefully you get to see Nationals win today and get to see some of these young guys really take advantage of a very, very good major league pitcher who has struggled over his last few starts, by the way. So we'll see what happens with the Washington Nationals today, Game 3 against the Royals. But until then, I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.